Catherine, I'm really excited to talk to you today. Tell us a little about yourself and what you do.
So thanks for having me. Um, I have been working for quite a while with people who are going through a spiritual awakening. So what that looks like is usually when we find ourselves at a big crossroad and there are big changes that are happening in our lives. And we understand that we can't continue the way we always have, and that we need to start expanding and looking at things from a different angle. So that's the main sort of aspect of the work that I offer. And I help people really also reconnect with their spirit, their relationship to spirit, whether it's through nature spirits, whether it's through ancestors, through, different types of spirits that we have all around us all the time.
Catherine, thank you for introducing yourself. Tell us a little bit more in detail how you got to where you are today. What trainings did you undergo? How did you get to the position where you're helping people in their awakening journey?
So it definitely wasn't, from the very beginning. I was a big party girl and I was working in advertising and in marketing. And after I had my two sons, I think the biggest initiation was definitely becoming a mother. That really turned my life upside down. But um, after that, I also realized that there are things that needed to change, which led me to a divorce. And then everything was really turned upside down. And then usually that's when spirit starts coming in. There is a calling. There's something that wants to be seen, something that wants your attention. So for me, it manifested in traveling to Peru and meeting the Pacos, who are the indigenous people from the Peruvian Andes. And I apprenticed with them for about 3 years. And along that time, I also completed a diploma in spiritual counseling with the Holistic Healing College in London. And I became also a practitioner at the College of Psychic Studies. So there were many different avenues that kind of started opening up for me to offer what it is that I'm offering. So those are the main kind of training wheels that I've had.
Amazing, Catherine. Now, I know that some people who listen to this might think, what spirit is she talking about? Would you like to expand a little bit on that?
Yeah, sure. So everything is energy and it's a matter of density. So we can, take something that is, our bodies, for instance, are dense, a bottle of water, a stone. And then if you think about Wi-Fi, I always take the example of Wi-Fi. It works, but we can't see it, or even music, like we hear it, but we can't touch it. Or just the feeling of you're entering a space or you meet a person for the first time and you have that knowing, that kind of energetic knowing about what's going on there in that exchange. So spirit for me is other kind of beings that have a less dense form. So it could be the spirits of nature. So, fire, all the elements, fire, water, air, earth. And then we can have also the spirit of the plants, the trees, the rocks. And then if we go, out of matter, then we have ancestors, we have spirit guides of different forms. There are many different aspects to spirit guides also, depending on if you have a specific faith, so different gods and goddesses, the angelic realms. So those are the spirits that I refer to because they're all around us all the time. But it's like all relationships, we need to have reciprocity in those relationships if we want to have them.
Train the muscle.
Train the muscle, exactly.
Catherine, tell us a little what motivates you doing what you do, and tell us a little. You wrote a book. Tell us a little bit how you work.
So my book is called You Are Loved: Essential Spirit Guides and Guardians, which is exactly what I was just explaining about spirit in terms of reinforcing our relationship to spirit. Because very often when we want advice or support, we will go to another person. But there is much more that is available to us that is also not as biased as a person, because our friends or our families, and they will always have their relationship to us and what they believe is best. Whereas when you start connecting to spirit, you start having a bit more kind of unbiased lines of information. But that takes, as you said, training the muscle. It doesn't happen like this. And in our modern Western society, it's very much like that. We want the healing, we want the messages, we want, but it doesn't work like that. It's like you can't expect to have a very close relationship to a person in physical form if you don't feed that relationship. So it's the same with spirit, which is what I talk a lot about in my book. And what motivates me is I've been in very dark places myself, like really dark places, and I've always made it out of them because I've deepened my spiritual practice. I've deepened my my desire to understand and expand my own consciousness. And that's what I would like for everyone, because I think it's an illusion, especially in the age of social media, that we think that everybody's got it figured out, everybody's beautiful, everybody's got a perfect family. That's not true. Like, we're all struggling somehow. Some of us show it more than others. And I really want to bring forward to people that there is more support in a way of being that includes spirit, really.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Catherine. That's very, very important. Catherine, tell us what you think is your superpower. What do you think you have that makes you so good at what you do?
So it's a blessing and a curse, but I see very quickly, like I read people and I see beyond what is said and not said, or what is, the pretenses. Like, that doesn't work when I'm like connecting with people, which can also make, social interactions a bit tricky, especially when it comes to people who don't necessarily want to know, what I see. And I've learned to sort of manage that. But for people who come and work with me, it's very helpful because I can see very quickly into their blueprints, what is it that they're doing in their subconscious very often and how it manifests in their lives. So I read energy very kind of easily in a way. I would really say that that's my superpower.
That's almost a scary thing to say. Catherine, tell us a little bit when you realized that you had this ability. And is this something that everyone can have, or do you believe this is just certain people? I'd really like to understand that a little bit better.
So, I mean, if I would have a label, it would probably be a seer or a psychic, or, do everybody have it? I think most people do, but most people have a lot of layers that they haven't moved through for a good reason. I believe that we all hold on to different layers because they protect us, not because we don't want to be a transcendent human. I think some people might have it more than others. And I have a whole theory also behind what makes a seer. And there's a bit of, hypervigilance for sure that comes into it as well. If you grew up in an environment where you had to be very hypervigilant, your sight is going to be pretty razor sharp. And then there is, the information from spirit, which is a different side of seeing. So I really have both. And I think people have that within themselves if they want to, but I wouldn't say necessarily everybody does. No.
Thank you, Catherine, on expanding on that. Tell us what would your top tips be for other women?
Definitely invest in know thyself, I think, is the most potent medicine that we can connect with. And it's a lot of work. And sometimes it's scary because it means that we're going to have to change the way we've done things and the way we've related to life in general. Like, it means changing our belief systems as well. But investing in understanding yourself better, whether it's starting talking therapy, whether it's, going to the Andes with the shamans, and to really follow that knowing, because I think as women, we have a really deep intuition that we sometimes, unfortunately, are severed from. And I think that happens to most of us. So it takes time to rebuild that trust in our intuition. But usually when we're called somewhere, that's something to follow. I definitely had that with Peru. And it was just like a knowing that nobody could, talk me out of. And another top tip would be also to start minding who you surround yourself with. and start surrounding yourself with people who are supportive, who are on the same journey. Because when you're on that journey of awakening, it also changes your relationships quite a lot, and sometimes it can feel quite lonely. So I think really finding, a group of people that you connect with, whether it's a women's circle, whether it's, a spiritual practice, and spending time in nature, I think is absolutely non-negotiable when you're on this path, because especially if you're a sensitive person and you have all these changes that are happening in your body, in your mind, in your emotions, and in your energy body, you need a place where you can just be. And the only place that I would see as such is really just being immersed in nature, because there is a harmony that is there by default. It's not always pleasant. Nature will always teach you what you need to learn, but it's almost like a neutral place that doesn't have an agenda. So those are really the tips I would say, like know thyself, surround yourself with people who are on the same journey, and spend time in nature.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Now, my last question is, what plans do you have for your future? What dreams do you dream?
I have been thinking about that a lot lately. My dream is really to, in convergence with what you're offering here on this beautiful platform, is to make a space for women to really start trusting their power, and not in an oppositional way, not in a defiant way, but that true power, and that understanding what true power is, and really moving away from, it's kind of like Power versus Force, that book, where understanding that true power is not necessarily what we've been taught. And in that power, then finding the strength and the vision to make the changes that so clearly need to be made. So whatever that looks like, I'm not entirely sure yet. I trust also my journey, and I believe very much that what I share authentically from my journey is something that can cause a ripple effect with that. And I trust that I'll meet the right people along the way, and the right lands also.
Thank you so much, Catherine, for sharing with us today.
Thanks for having me. It was really lovely.